Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here with us. Today, me and Kendall, we're going to walk you through the first learnings that we generated from our XR Sports Alliance experiment that we literally actually have only concluded a couple weeks ago. So it's going to be very early learnings, but we wanted to share them with you. On stage with me today, we have Kendall Goodden, who is leading global partnerships at FISE. Thank you for being here with me, Kendall.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Perfect. Now, to get started, I would like to show you a video of what FISE is actually about, just to give you a quick show reel.
Welcome to Montpellier, a beautiful city in the south of France.
Whether you're here on the ground in Montpellier or tuning in from wherever in the world you are right now, you have picked a fantastic weekend to show up.
Shakalaka baby, let's go!
This is FISE, 29 editions so far of the biggest urban sports festival on the planet, right here in the south of France. Sun, street, culture, and the best freestyle athletes in the world on the borders of the River Less. If this is your first time here, we warmly welcome you. And if you've been with us before, you already know what's about to happen.
Taste you in the morning, drink you in the evening, then we'll go out stealing. Won't rest till I find you, won't rest till I like you one last time.
If you're wondering where I'm at, maybe you can tell by the Les River behind me. If you can't tell from that, you can tell by the greatest audience in BMX.
Okay, so I hope you got a good picture, but Kendall, for anyone who hasn't been to FISE before, could you tell us a little bit about the event and the people, the crowd who's coming?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, thanks a lot to give a shout out to the XRSA, the people at Qualcomm for inviting us to this event, but also to just be part of the Sports Alliance. It's really incredible what they've put together, the group you guys have gathered and been able to make real, experimentation. It's been incredible so far. So the FISE World Series, it started in 1997 as a little school project by our founder and CEO on the coast of France. Just a little action sports kind of party, basically. And here we are 29 years later. We've become one of the largest urban culture and action sports events on the globe. We have become a full World Series, so we're rapidly adding new cities to the World Series, but as of the moment, the full series today, it kicks off in Macau, which is our event. The event in Macau, it's the first international skateboarding competition in Macau, which is something we're very proud to say. We also built one of the first skate parks in that region. Then it goes to Montpellier, France. Montpellier is the largest urban sports festival in Europe, about 112,000 people on site over 5 days. Birmingham, USA is a brand new stop that we're going to in August. It's going to feature World Cups, so you have the BMX World Cup, we have skateboarding competitions, and we have 3x3 FIBA basketball World Cup level competition, FIBA Challenger. So that's exciting because that's on the road to LA. There's a very exciting story there. It'll be hot. It's going to be August in Alabama, but it's covered. We have misters and things to make it nice. Then we're off to Shanghai. Shanghai is a really exciting one because we've been in Shanghai since 2014, so we're pioneers in the world of urban sports in China. Now we've moved to Shanghai and have a 10-year partnership with them, with the West Bund. So if anybody's been to Shanghai or or Chinese, you probably know the West Bund. It's a very hip, cool area. And we're hosting, so that's become, that event after just a couple editions is now the largest urban sports event in China as well, about 70,000 people on site over a few days. And then we wrap up the year in Japan and Paris at the very end.
Cool. And about your audience, how old are they? That's the reason why we're very interested in working with FISE as well.
Yeah, I think it probably comes as no surprise to anybody here that our audience is very young, being these kind of sports. The athletes as well, they're the youngest athletes in the Olympics, are all the urban sports athletes. So our audience is about 60% of our audience is under 25 years old. As you can imagine, they're very much digital native. They're very connected on social media. And the interesting thing, let's say challenge and fun part of our job is our sports are already not, are non-traditional sports. It's not baseball, it's not basketball. So the way it's consumed is already quite different. It's very clip-based, and then combined with this audience that consumes sports now in less traditional ways, we're constantly thinking about what's the right way to engage them through technology, through format, short form, long form. Long form is less traditional broadcast and a lot more vlog, this kind of content based.
And that audience exactly is why we as the XR Sports Alliance were very interested in this experiment, and having FISE hosting it was a perfect opportunity for us. Just a quick context maybe, who has not heard about the XR Sports Alliance before. We are a non-profit global organization. We were founded by Accedo, HBS, and Qualcomm. The idea was really to build a global organization of all of the pioneers in sports and XR and bridge the both industries. Yesterday, actually, at the Qualcomm keynote, we were announcing our newest cohort of members. 11 members here. You're seeing a lot of big companies, Specs, Pico, joined us, but of course also San Diego Waves is a San Diego football team, but also Manchester United and a couple other very big names like the CAA. In total right now, we're actually 33 members globally across all different categories. The mission of our alliance is really to share knowledge. Everybody has done experiments before, probably a lot of people in this room as well, but we see very limited successful commercial XR sports services. So the idea is we're doing structured experiments. And these structured experiments are deployed by the members within the alliance. Then we do user testing, and all of these learnings will then be shared back to all of the alliance members. So it's really knowledge sharing that is the prime mission here. And of course, then what does it do? It helps the sports organizations understand how they can monetize and build their fan base on this new spatial computing platform, and that helps accelerate time to market for these services. So yeah, that's our prime mission. And before we dive deeper into the actual experiment, what we did, I think it's important for the room to understand, Kendall. Can you paint a picture about the complexity of the production of FISE? Because we're not talking about one sport, one court. How complex is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the kickoff experimentation we did was at our flagship event, which is FISE Montpellier. At Montpellier, we have about 12 different disciplines present on site. I won't go for the full list, but you have skateboard, parkour, BMX, scooter, rollerblade, 3v3 basketball, so on and so forth. And of those, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it's 4 or 3 of them are live broadcast, full production. So that tells you the complexity of, we have the live broadcast side of things, which requires OB trucks, traditional broadcast technology, all of that. But we also, of course, have a massive social media team working on the content production, the quick clips, this side of things, and all of that coordinated at the same time. Thanks a lot. Shout out to our sports department that manages to keep it all on schedule.
So yes, it was very complex, and looking at the production workflow that FISE is already working with the XR Sports Alliance, we sent our production team on site, and we started producing 180, 360 content, drone footage in 2D, but as well using anti-gravity 360 drones. We produced all sorts of immersive formats. The idea of this specific experiment, the objective was really more about the editorial piece. So if we look at production of sports and of the areas that this industry still needs to crack for XR sports to take off, if we look at production, there are things like live caption of the game, or editorial storytelling, the glass-to-glass pipeline of the video broadcast workflow, and other things like hardware and so on. But this specific experiment was more about the editorial piece. Because when we look at 180 content, we're giving the user the autonomy to look at wherever they want to, so they can get lost in that experience, right? So when we put together the experience, our production team in the post-production process, they made sure if they are following their heads, the bike from left to right, then the next sequence would also start where they ended the first sequence. So it's a natural way of moving your head and following along to not have the user get lost within the experience. You can check out the experience at the Qualcomm booth, by the way, at the Immersive Sports Station. But I have a very short clip. It doesn't really show even the entire experience. We have an editorial piece, a teaser, at the booth that you can check out. But here's a very quick video. It's a very short clip, but it gives you a little bit of an idea that we are now allowing users to get to a proximity that they could not even get, of course, at home, but not even on site when they're at the seat. Kendall, looking at this from a FISE perspective, what do you think is now opening up opportunities to engage the audience with this?
Yeah, I mean, our events and these sports especially are the type that, it's kind of be there. You have to see it to understand how impressive it is. Even traditional broadcast, this picture, for example, yeah, it's pretty cool. He's pretty high in the air doing a backflip. But once you're on site and you realize it's 6 meters in the air, 10 meters in the air that they're doing backflips or double backflips, you immediately feel how impressive that is. And if we can communicate that, off-site through experiences in your house, things like that, I'm sure it captures us more audience, and those are definitely obvious benefits to this kind of content.
Other than this fan engagement part, one of our core objectives for this experiment was also to tap into how natural immersive sponsorship can feel. We were in a very luxury position this time because the sponsor that we're talking about for this specific experiment was Insta360. Coincidentally, at the same time, Anti-Gravity, the 360 drone company, joined the XR Sports Alliance as a member, and their parent company, Insta360, from which you probably heard of, is the sponsor of the event. So this time we actually used the sponsor's product to produce content, put that content into the app, and showed naturally how the sponsorship product could be used in such an experience. But looking at the sponsorship landscape in general, what does it mean in terms of commercial models for you now as FISE with this kind of technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, how do I say, technological advancement and innovation in our events and our sports is massively important to us because we have a very young audience. That's what they look for. They are easy adopters of this new technology, so it's something we want to be. We also kind of have our own ambition of being the Tomorrowland of action sports and sports festivals, so we want to have this present in our events. And then having it integrated in a very authentic, I know that's a way overused word in marketing, but with our audience, with skateboarding, these type of people, they're very quick to call out something as inauthentic. So making sure this technology and sponsorships are integrated in an authentic way is the most important way to how we collaborate with our brands and bring brands into the event.
One of the things that we tested out, so we just mentioned drone footage, right? 360 drone footage, but a key format that we tested here was also immersive 180 content. We know usually 180 content is living on headsets, right? It started out on Vision Pro and all kinds of headsets, but now that the market is very much shifting towards AR glasses, we wanted to test how 180 content could live on this new form factor, not new, but AR glasses form factor, and measure the fan perceived value, really, of 180 content on headsets versus glasses. Do you have an opinion if you were to deploy now whether headsets or glasses would be the right fit for FISE?
Yeah, I think it's not the most useful answer. The answer is both, but for a different context. So glasses, just after seeing how people interact with them and thinking of our audience, specifically talking about on-site, is I feel glasses, first of all, are very fashionable. It fits our audience, wants to, it's the cool kids, so they want to have the fashionable glasses. The goggles, I think, can be seen as a little bit over-techy, especially for skateboarders or streetwear kind of style people. So I think that's one element that made me think glasses fits very well. And I think it also suits the group audience viewing experience. When you're in the crowd, you want to be in the moment, sharing that moment with the people around you. So glasses don't take you out of that, whereas I think goggles kind of do. But that's not to say that I think goggles have its own place because it's so immersive. I think maybe that's better suited for maybe even teams to use for their own, research and use of exploring the course, or inside of booths, inside of sponsor activations where you can truly kind of immerse in that zone. That's kind of how I would see it.
Do you see the use case of the on-site more or at home?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think we have our mind very much on-site, and I think as it's kind of, I think for a lot of you, maybe it's not new technology, but for our audience, it hasn't been adopted too much. I think it makes a lot of sense to focus on the on-site experience, getting these products in the hands of people, getting them trying it for the first time in this environment, and imagining using it outside.
You explained to me as well, because I'm not really a skater girl, but the complexity around that sport, it's not natural to the eye. You can't really understand it, right? You had a lot of ideas, actually, before we even started having this conversation about the experiment. You had so many ideas how you could use this technology to even educate people about the sport. Can you share some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always start your skate career. You're never too late. No, for our sports, that's why it's fun. It kind of goes back to the authentic point, is there's so many ways to integrate this technology in our events that it's not just, let's say for the back word, campy, or not just like an activation. It's something that really improves the viewing experience. So for example, skateboarding is a very high context sport. When you watch it in the Olympics, for example, if you don't know that the guy's riding in switch, which is the same as basically riding or playing baseball with your left hand or something like that, if you don't know he's doing that, you don't realize how hard the trick is. And just adding in our glasses something we discussed, but like an overlay saying he's in switch, or a difficulty meter, it immediately makes this sport more accessible. Especially at our events, we have people, it's not only diehard skate fans, it's a fan of basketball that happens to be going to the skate contest, watches this, wears this glasses, see this sponsored moment, and understands the sport better. So there's a lot of practical application.
We ran our experiment and the user testing activation on site in Montpellier as well. And it was a very limited user testing. We had about 70 people testing the application on the MetaQuest headset, because back then the X-Reel was not launched yet, we couldn't use it, the Project Aura, because the application was built for MetaQuest and for Aura to really test how it's on glasses versus on headsets. We used the MetaQuest, 70 people tested. Over half of these people were actually younger than 18 years old. So we only had like the other half older than 80 years old filling out our Google Forms and really giving us quantitative and qualitative feedback. But just to share a couple of very, very preliminary data around this. We're continuing user testing now. Even like the experience that you're seeing now at the booth is our teaser experience. In a couple of weeks, we will have the full-length editorial piece. When we look at the data, Kendall, actually, one of the questions was, does this experience make your experience at FISE more memorable? And they said 4.24 out of 5 said yes. Do you have a comment on that? What do you think, how you can leverage it for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I'm not super surprised at the young people being more into this technology and quick to grab onto it. So that makes a lot of sense. And hearing that it's more memorable visit to FISE, yeah, absolutely. I think it's clear to us. We already had these ambitions, but after seeing what can be done, that this kind of technology has a place, a very obvious place in the sports viewing experience, both on-site and maybe at home as well.
One thing to add as well is the experience that we hosted, the on-site activation was within a sponsor's tent. So there's always a little bit of a hurdle for the user also to go into the sponsor's tent. We were discussing about maybe the next activation, we can have this activation actually right on site at the field of play. That would be easier access.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the more engaging, fun way to do it. Because of course, having a moment with the sponsor in their tent, that's fine. But what we always talk to our sponsors about is whenever you do an activation, at least at our events, don't make it a booth and a brochure that's boring. Do something that's gonna stick in people's minds. And one part of that is, being instead of it being, part of the brand experience, it's actually part of the festival experience. So you're right next to the actual sports field of play. It's not only you experiencing it, feeling the vibe from the audience and in this great location, but you also are being seen. You have all the people in the audience seeing like, what the hell is that? I want to give that a try. And having this kind of reaction is what you want as a brand.
We now have this, all of the editorial pieces and the assets that were produced at this event in Montpellier. We're already thinking about how we can reactivate it in the next activation in Shanghai, for example. But this is all still under the umbrella of the XR Sports Alliance. So what would it take, or what needs to be true for you to move on from experiment to an actual commercial project?
I think, so the ideal situation, and we can, if anybody wants to jump on this, let me know afterwards, is we have a global series. We have 8 stops, 6 to 8 stops around the world already ready. That is basically a sandbox. We own the entire event itself. And instead of it being just a booth, is having a worldwide technology partner, XR partner, finding the right term for it, and integrating it in every event. So it's not just a side mention. It's not just one of the sponsored booths. Instead, it's something that's communicated year-round, integrated in the actual event, and becomes standard. Becomes something people expect when you go watch this sport, when you go to FISE. It's something you see. So that's the ideal situation, is to have a brand come champion that and say, yes, I want to be in front of these young people worldwide, connected with sports and pushing innovation in this way.
And looking at your audience, you have the right target. The age of the audience is really a good fit for tech-savvy brands to participate. Thank you, everyone. We need to wrap up this session. Feel free to reach out to us at any time on LinkedIn or xrsportsalliance.com. Feel free to reach out to Kendall. He's very keen to talk about how to creatively implement this technology, spatial computing, into his events. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, everybody.